The Chevy Silverado EV Trail Boss promises off-road capability with maximum on-road range. But if you're going to go head out on the highway and go on a trip, what sort of range and efficiency can you realistically expect in this package? Well, tonight we find out. Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and today we've got the real-world highway range and efficiency test on the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado EV Trail Boss Maximum Battery Pack. In this test, I'm going to head out on the highway and do 50 miles out and 50 miles back, averaging 70 miles per hour, to get a realistic range figure for this big boy EV truck. But before we get started, let's hop out and take a look at it. Now, I gotta say, I have been a fan of this truck ever since it rolled into my driveway, all 9,000 pounds of it, because it's capable, it's smooth, it's quiet, and compared to trucks of its capability, it's particularly efficient. It's about, if you're charging at home, even here in California with particularly expensive electric rates and expensive gasoline, it's going to cost you about half as much to run compared to a standard gasoline truck. And even with these all-terrain tires on the Trail Boss model and a little bit of a lift, Chevy and the EPA says it's going to be just about as efficient as the RST with its god-awful, 24-inch wheels I think you can get on that truck. This one much more reasonable with the 18s and a little bit of off-road cred. So we're going to head out and do this highway range testing, but I'm also going to take this on a trip this weekend. We're going to throw a Honda ATV in the back. I'm going to load it up with some camping gear. I'm going to go up into the mountains. So you can check out the rest of this video for sort of our scientific testing, but also if you just want to see a real-world eval, check the link below for our full week-long Living With review. And then we've also got a dedicated sound system test on the truck as well with its Bose audio system. So check the link below if you'd like to see those. And let's give a quick shout out to the video sponsor, LasFit. I was thankful to have a set of LasFit liners for this truck because I know I'm going to be getting it dirty. I'm going to be throwing my gear into here. I'm going to be doing camping. And these LasFit liners that come for the Silverado EV offer more coverage than even the rubber liners that come from Chevy with this package. So you can see how well the 3D measuring and printing does with getting these liners all covered nicely under the seats, back under here. So with my dirty four-wheeling boots later this weekend, I don't have to worry about getting the carpet all dirty, and it's going to be very easy to pull these out. It even comes up over the sill here a little bit, which is going to keep that plastic in good shape. And we see the same thing in the driver's area as well, which is very important. See a decent bit of siping. I apologize for that beeping right there in your ears. But decent bit of siping, and then it goes well up under the pedals, onto the dead pedal. Everything here nicely covered and protected from LasFit. So whether you have a Silverado EV or pretty much any other vehicle, except for 2000s Tacomas and Elantra GTs, you should be able to get a set of LasFit liners. So check the link below, use my code DailyMotor to get yourself a nice discount. Big shout out to LasFit. So why do we do this test? Well, the EPA's Highway Fuel Economy and Range Test, which gives this truck 61 mpge, that test only averages 48 miles per hour. And we know there are people buying these trucks who want to do real-world sort of trips and having places to be. So I want to know what sort of efficiency you can realistically expect at higher steady speeds. So in order to test that out, I'm going to charge the truck all the way up here. We're going to go out at night when there's less traffic on the road. I'm going to go out and do those 100 miles, come back, charge the truck all the way back up, and see what our final numbers are. Now, a few things to note for the test. Outside temperature should be somewhere in the mid to upper 60-degree Fahrenheit range, so pretty ideal weather conditions. I fully acknowledge that if this were cold weather, we're running the heat, or particularly hot weather, running some real big AC, you're going to see a bit of a range degradation there from both the heater as well as the battery chemistry. So that's something to take into account. But we're going to have pretty ideal weather conditions. The tire pressure is going to be set at their door placard at 61 psi cold. These tires need a lot of air because this is a very heavy vehicle. And I'm going to run the climate control at 73 degrees auto. So with that, let's head to the charger and get this thing topped off. Here we are. We've got the Silverado EV charged all the way up. 499 miles on our range estimate right now. Just give us that 500. Come on, you couldn't have given me that one extra mile. All right, tire pressures are all filled up. 61 psi. Took a while to fill some of those. That's a lot of rubber there, a lot of air that's got to be shoved in. So we're good there. Let's turn the truck on. There we are. And let's get HVAC going. 73 auto. Reset our trip meter, which you got to do from here. You go vehicle status, trip 1. Let's reset trip 2. Start our GPS. We're ready to roll. Now the Silverado EV has a lot more of a pleasant, low-speed pedestrian warning sound than our Equinox EV does. It's a little lower pitched, a little bit more mechanical sounding, a little bit less spaceshipy. I actually like it quite a bit more than the Equinox. Another few things that are nice here. When you start off and you have your trip reset, it starts the miles per kilowatt hour at what Chevy considers to be your mixed driving EPA range. And then if you go below that, it drops down. If you go above it, it goes up. But it starts right off there at 2.2. With our Equinox, it goes to 3.5. Also, even though we are at 100% state of charge, we're still getting regen, which is pretty darn cool with the one pedal driving. It feels very natural. I'm sure it's doing a degree of blending in the friction brakes there, but you can see from the gauge cluster, our energy screen, that we were still getting some regen happening. So that's pretty cool. Drive modes. I don't think we have an eco mode. I think it's actually kind of nice that Chevy doesn't do that, but let's confirm. What do we got for drive modes? We have My Mode, Normal, Off-Road, Tow Haul, and Terrain. We're going to leave it right here in normal mode and head over to the highway here. It's about 0.7 miles away from our home charger. Boy, it sure is easy to get up to speed faster than you realize with this truck. We've got so much power, and it's pretty well insulated. You sit pretty high up. It's cool. As with all of our tests, the goal is not to hypermile, but rather to get a realistic range figure cruising at 70. And oftentimes for these more energy-oriented vehicles, some people come in the comments and go, oh, if you care about fuel efficiency, you should slow down. You'll get much better efficiency at lower speeds. Yeah, I know that, but I've got places to be. This weekend, I'm going to be taking this truck out to go camping, and I'm not going to drive 60 miles per hour on the highway just to get better efficiency. I'm going to drive 70 because I want to get there. In fact, some places I might drive 75. Who knows? I value my time more than I value my energy in most situations. So that's why we test at 70 miles per hour. We want to know what this truck actually does at highway speeds. So we are going to settle in right here. Looks like our dash gauge is very accurate. 71 on the dash, giving us 70, maybe 71. We just had it there. Maybe we got to pump up to 72 for part of our test. Alright, looks like we're going to be going back and forth, but maybe 72 on the dash is going to give us... we're right around there. We'll be back and forth. But we do have Super Cruise. So right there, we see the little green icon come up on our steering wheel, and bada bing, bada boom, the truck is driving for us, and it'll change lanes. There's even an automatic lane change functionality. I just got this truck today, haven't adjusted those settings yet, so it's possible it's not turned on. But either way, I can just tap the turn signal and it'll change lanes for me. That's usually how I prefer to do it with these Super Cruise vehicles anyway. Aside from full self-driving in a Tesla, this is the best highway driving assist functionality that I have used. Should make this a very nice and easy drive. So I'm going to continue on with the test and catch up with you at the end. We're going to be doing some members-only testing of this Bose sound system. So check the link below if you want to see that. And in the meantime, enjoy this time-lapse of the entire trip. Coming into the end of the highway range test here in the Silverado EV Trail Boss. I had a moment driving down the 5 freeway. Super Cruise going, I'm in the right lane, sun setting behind me, and I'm relaxed. I'm looking out the window a little bit more than I get to in a car that can't drive itself on the highway. It's very quiet in here, it's very smooth. Just had a nice time. This is a good place to be on the highway. Super Cruise, though, did have some issues, and it's a bit frustrating to me that here we are, 2026, Super Cruise. What are we coming up on? Not quite 10 years, but getting close. Before too long, 10 years of Super Cruise. And we're still having some of these weird issues. Twice now within the last 25 miles. I didn't quite have phantom braking, but I had phantom deceleration. Absolutely nothing in front of me, and then the car just dropped a few miles per hour, and it was enough to be like, hey, what's going on? Are you working right? Then, about 5 miles ago, very open section of the freeway right here. I was in one of the middle lanes, and all of a sudden it just gave up and flashed at me and said, take control, and then it said, lane ending. Definitely not ending. I was right in the middle, plenty of lanes going for many, many, many miles. And then a few different points that it just kind of gave up. It just said, hey, you gotta take control. Oh, and then also I noticed it's kind of tracking close to the left side of the lane. So, Super Cruise is interesting in that some GM vehicles I drive, it's excellent. It's like, I'm totally comfortable. It feels like it's fully competent. Other GM vehicles I drive, it's like, something's weird in a sensor or something like that. So, this seems to be one of the ones that's a little more weird. I am going to be taking it on some trips later this week, so we'll see if that keeps up, but that was at least what I observed here tonight. Comfort, nice and comfortable in the seat, good amount of adjustability, soft places for my elbows on both sides, good adjustability to the wheel as well, no complaints there. In terms of efficiency, we are looking at 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour according to the vehicle's calculations. That seems to be a little bit low compared to the EPA's highway range figure, but actually come to think of it, no, it's really not that much, because EPA would be just under 2 as well, so I'm sure we're right about there. We are also down to 78% state of charge, so just over 3/4 of the battery, but we can bring this up, go to vehicle status, energy use, and it says we've used, okay, so again, that would actually be about right, wouldn't it? 1.5 kilowatt hours for climate, and then, oh, we gotta let our blind spot camera go away, and then 50 kilowatt hours for driving. So that would be 51.5 now, and 205, yeah. So it doesn't seem to line up perfectly with the 205 kilowatt hour battery pack, but darn close. So yeah, I've been happy driving this around on the highway, happily spend more hours behind the wheel, but we need to get it back to the house, get it plugged in, and we are going to have a long night of charging. Oh, that camera went halfway into my lane, that's good. We're going to have a long night of charging because I have my house charger dialed down to just over 3 kilowatts. I want to go easy on my old electrical panel, so it's going to take a while to charge us back up. We got, what, 50, looks like the truck's used 51.7 kilowatt hours at this point, so somebody feel free to do the math, but it's going to be charging for a little while. So let's get it plugged in, and then I'll catch up with you after we're all topped off. We'll crunch our final numbers. We are all charged up, put in a total of 54 kilowatt hours. It's technically 54.03, but we're just going to round to 54 kilowatt hours from the charger. And we assume about a 95% charging efficiency at level 2. So 54 kilowatt hours times 0.95 is giving us about 51.3 put back into the truck. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's about what the truck said, right? I forgot to take a photo, I guess, of the actual EV screen on the truck, but I think we were right around there. We're at 78%. So either way, we traveled 100.8 miles. So that would be 100.8 divided by 51.3 is giving us 1.96 miles per kilowatt hour, which is very similar than the rounding error there of the 2.0 given by the truck. So rounding up, you can expect to get about 2 miles per kilowatt hour here out of the max range Chevrolet Silverado EV Trail Boss at 70 miles per hour. And that means if we do indeed have that 205 kilowatt hour battery pack, we're looking at 205 times 2, looking at about 410 miles of real usable range at highway speeds in ideal weather conditions. Now, if you get this thing in the winter in Michigan, something like that, then expect to lose about 20% there, so 0.8. That's only 330-ish miles, 328. And then, you can't go all the way from 100 to 0 every time. So realistically, give yourself about 300 miles, which, hey, if you're traveling 70 miles per hour and you're going, you drive for 4 hours or so, which is pretty much more than most people are going to want to drive on one stop, you can do those 4 hours of driving or so to about 280 miles, hit a charger, charge up to about 90%, and then get back on the road again. So, I think it's pretty darn cool that this is a truck that you can realistically use here in the real world for road tripping, towing activities, etc. And like I said, later on this weekend, I'm going to put that to the test. We're loading a four-wheeler here in the back of the truck. We're heading out. We're doing some camping. So take a look for that video if you want to see more about real-world range and usability here with the Silverado EV. But I just love that Chevy threw a big old battery in this and said, have at it. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Silverado EV here, check the link below for all of our other coverage, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.